Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. We're going to take a look at another Siege Micromaster pack. We're taking a look now at the Sports Car Patrol, which consists of Blackjack and Hyperdrive. Of course, both of them were also members of the Generation 1 Sports Car Patrol, where in that instance, Blackjack here was the leader of the patrol, and Hyperdrive was their resident gearhead. So, while we've got these guys out, it's also worth noting that in the G1 form, these guys used unique original molds to themselves. The Siege ones here, unfortunately, are repaints of the Race Car Patrol that was released late last year. So unfortunately, that's a disappointment that they didn't get the same treatment from their G1 toys. But at any rate, let's take a look at them individually and compare them to each other. We shall start here with Blackjack. The Generation 1 version, you could rotate his arms all the way around, and that was more or less it for that. You could bend his legs at the hip about 90 degrees, and you could bend him at the knees 90 degrees. So his articulation was, admittedly, quite limited. For the new Blackjack, he can rotate his arms all the way with some careful manipulation. He can spread his legs apart about so far. You can raise his leg at the hip about 90 degrees, and he can bend his leg at the knee about 90 degrees. Plus, he also does have the ability to twist at his hips. The only problem is that he's not a very stable toy. As you see, he falls over very easily. So that's kind of a disappointment. He's almost better off staying in his car mode. So, speaking of that, we'll get him into his car mode. The first thing we do is we press his legs together like so. And then we're going to turn him around. We're going to fold up this section here so that it goes over his head, around his arms, to form the hood of the car. His arms will then need to be straightened out, and they can attach to that piece once you can get the arms to move around his hip. They should all lock into place very simply. Might take a little effort to get everything lined up just right. There we go. And then naturally all that's left is to fold his legs up. And then he becomes a little racing car. Of course, I do like the added detail of the gold bar there in the front of the car. Painting the car grill yellow. This orange, this gold color is kind of a nice detail. Certainly adds a little bit more than the original, since it had an unpainted grill. But the original also had the added detail of it at least had a windshield wiper on the back window. This one, well, we got Decepticon symbols on the sides, at least on the driver's door, so you at least know what team he belongs to. All we need is just this to look slightly different in color, and then it would almost bring to mind Car from Knight Rider. Then again, I am a product of the 80s. Now we take a look at Hyperdrive. We'll start by looking at the G1's articulation. So he can only raise his arms up 90 degrees, and that was it. You could bend his legs at the hip about 90 degrees, and then you could bend him at the knee about 90 degrees. So, again, very limited, but about what was par for a MicroMaster in the 1980s. For this new Hyperdrive, well, he can raise his arms outwards about so far, but he can rotate his arm all the way with some careful manipulation. He can spread his legs apart about so far, and apparently he can also do the twist at his hips. You can raise his leg at the hip about 90 degrees, and you can bend him at the knee about 90 degrees. Also, like Blackjack, he's also prone to falling over, but Hyperdrive at least does have a little more stability than his partner does, as it doesn't take much manipulation to get him to stand up. Now, of course, to transform him, the first thing we got to do is we press his arms in, like so. Then you'll combine his legs together, like so. Fold the hood of the car off of his back and over his head. And then, keeping the legs together, fold them over and rest them like so. And there you have him in his car mode. The comparison side by side with the original. They are both totally different car models, so mainly due to the fact that this one was intended to be a real car, whereas the MicroMaster of the new era is not intended to be. That way Hasbro doesn't have to pay royalties. Smart. Yeah, right. Of course, before we see their weapon modes, we ought to see how these guys roll. Blackjack, not so great. Hyperdrive, also not so great. These plastic wheels on them don't really do them justice. But to compare them to their originals, as you can see, originals at least get a little more oomph out of them. Of course, the originals were meant to compete with Micro Machines, so they had to roll good. These guys aren't competing with anybody, so it's kind of one of those, who cares if they don't roll? But, like many of the other MicroMasters, they become a gun. So we might as well get that embarrassment over with. To do that, first with Blackjack, we fold his legs out, like so. Then you rotate him at the hips. Then up here under his hood, we fold out the little post. Like that. Then he's ready. To get Hyperdrive ready, we simply fold his legs out. Like so. And then again under his hood, there's a post. You may have to move the hood out a bit to get it out. Then you get it up, and then he's ready. And then basically, you will take the post on Hyperdrive here, and you'll insert it into the hole in the chest of Blackjack. And then here they are in their gun mode, which the instructions describe as a multi-mech combustion cannon. And it's one of those, okay, if you insist. Anyway, let's get a transformer out here. As usual, we've got our model refractor. Just take the post here on Blackjack, and you mount it into your transformer's hands. And it becomes one of those, I think I saw an example of this in Spaceballs. We may need a sturdier guy to hold this. There we go. And Refractor can use it to aim at a taller transformer or aim for the spotlight. Anyway, we get down to my thoughts. What do I think of the Sports Car Patrol? Well, again, like with many of them, I'm glad to see that the line is bringing them back. But I don't like the fact that they're repaints of an already existing toy. That just shows a lack of imagination. I'm not real happy with the fact that their wheels don't roll very well. So, I mean, this is a very smooth table here. And their gun mode really isn't that impressive. Especially when you just saw it there in the hands of a transformer. It doesn't really look that great here in a deluxe class toy. Maybe if I had brought up a Voyager class one, it might look a little bit better. But as you can see here, on a deluxe one, trying to hold it normally just topples him over. So he's got to use it to aim high, and that just looks kind of silly. So, unfortunately, this is another one that's going to be a bottom tier review, just simply with how dumb this looks. I am glad that Hasbro is not going to continue this idea in Earthrise. Anyway, that concludes my review of the Siege version of the Sports Car Patrol. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you like this video, drop me a thumbs up here on YouTube. New to the channel, please hit the subscribe button down below and join our ranks. Also, don't forget to ring the bell so you'll be notified when I post new content. And as long as YouTube doesn't flag this video for kids, please share your thoughts about the Sports Car Patrol in the comments down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.